Welcome to the October 22nd Administrative and Public Works Committee meeting. We have a quorum. Motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you. Should I read it as a consent or just? Yeah, I'm going to read it as a consent calendar. A1, payroll, September 17, 2018 through September 30th, 2018, $2,845,633.96. Bills list, October 23rd, 2018, $2,298,931.21. For action, A2, credit card activity not including Amazon purchases, period ending August 26, 2018, $194,498.94. For action, A6, change order, staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to approve change order number 1 to the contract for the water treatment plant door renovation with construction consultant and disbursement services. This change order includes a time extension for 75 days, changing the completion date from September 15th to November 29th. There is no cost increase associated with the change order. A8 for action, staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 79R18, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a park agreement with YOU located at 1911 Church Street for usage of their parking lot for patrons using Gibbs Morrison Cultural Center and businesses in the Church Dodge corridor. Funding will be for the Gibbs Morrison Building Maintenance Material Fund, which has an allocation of $2,000. Staff projects an expense of approximately $500 yearly for fall cleanup of the landscaping of the site. Snow removal will be in kind and performed by staff. A9 for action. The Parks and Recreation Community Services Board recommend adoption of Resolution 81R18, naming the portion of Dewey Avenue between Crane Street and Greenleaf Street with the honorary street name sign Pierre Jean Paul Way. 3 street signs are made for the honoree, and the approximate total cost is $200. Funds are budgeted in the Public Service Bureau Traffic Operation Material Fund, which has a fiscal year 2018 budget of $58,000 and a year-to-date balance of $48,000.
This item A9 isn't a big deal, but between now and the next committee meeting, I want to update the streets to reflect the right block.
You want to update the streets?
The streets are-
got it. Okay. I thought that was wrong.
Yeah.
A10 is for action. Staff recommends City Council adoption of Resolution 98R18, authorizing the city manager to execute a partnership agreement with Ridgeville Park District for the continuation of the middle school after-school program at the Cayman East Fieldhouse site. Ridgeville Park District is donating $12,000 for operational expenses and additional in-kind services for the program. For action, A11, staff requests City Council adoption of Resolution 80R18, a resolution in support of City of Evanston and School District 65 Safe Routes to School program. The City of Evanston seeks to obtain funding in support of Safe Routes to School program initiative. Move approval. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Madam Chairman, could you please take the Cayman Park thing off? I just want to ask
Yes.
a question, and I don't want to interrupt the consent agenda.
Yes, may I have a motion?
So I can move approval for consent agenda?
Yeah. It moves, it passes. All in favor? I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. So now it passes. Great. Going on to items for consideration. Okay, we'll start with A9, Alderman Braithwaite. Did you have anything further you wanted to add there, or the correction's been made?
I'll make the corrections with staff and have it prepared for council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A11, Alderman Rainey.
Is that Cayman Park? I'm not open yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, what is the city's contribution to that? You might have gone over that. I missed it. It wasn't in the packet, I don't believe. And I looked in the budget, I searched Cayman Park. Nothing came up.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Lawrence Hemingway, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. We have 2 staff individuals assigned to run that after-school program, and the donation from Ridgeville is helping support the cost of that staff. We also have some equipment there that belongs to us as well, and we also identified the site as a food site.
So we really don't have a number for what that's costing.
Oh, yes, this approximately is costing us approximately about $18,000 a year.
All right. Just wanted to know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
May I have a motion for A11?
Move approval,
That's A10. It's A10.
whatever.
Thank you.
Cayman Park.
A10, thank you.
I'm moving approval on Cayman Park.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It passes. Going on to consideration. Thank you. Items for consideration. Can we start with Alderman Fleming, A3?
Sure. This is for action. The City Council staff recommend approval of City of Evanston BMO Amazon credit card activity for the period ending August 26, 2018. This is for the Amazon credit card in the amount of $7,410.26.
All in favor? No. Any discussion? Oh, yes. Alderman Rainey.
Okay, just.
Okay.
So we're on A4, third quarter financial report?
No, we're on
The
A3.
Oh, we're
Amazon
on
credit card.
A3. Okay. A3 is the credit card, Amazon credit card activity.
No, did you have a question or any discussion?
No, you didn't turn my light off.
Oh, I apologize.
I had a question.
Thank you.
Actually, I had a statement, so I'm glad to see these charges going down a little bit from where they have been before. I guess I just want to remind staff, I looked at the memo, and it's very clear in terms of what, I don't know, the item numbers that are approved, so the type of purchases we can make through Amazon, there's a list of numbers there. And looking at this, I see that still the majority of the things that we're purchasing do not fall within the memo that we sent out to staff. There are about 1, 2, 3, there's 7 5-digit numbers, whatever they're referenced as. So I just want to, I'm glad to see these charges coming down. I know this is a new policy, but if we can just continue to emphasize with our staff that we're supporting local business.
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, if I could just add, the policy went into place, Mr. Earl, I believe September 1. So this was through August 26th. So this is sort of the waning days as the policy was being implemented. So
I did notice that, and I am glad that the charges are going down. So I'm hopeful to see that we continue that trend. So thank you for making sure that that was happening.
you bet.
Where are we?
Any further discussion? May I have a motion?
I move approval of A2. No, I'm sorry. A4.
No, A3.
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 I'm sorry, A3. Boy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we need to go back to item.
We're good. Thank you. It passes. Moving on. Alderman Rainey, could you take A4 and A5?
Dead.
Okay. A4 is the third quarter financial report for fiscal year 2018. We're being asked to review it and place it on file. I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Hitesh Desai, Chief Financial Officer. I have a short summary of the financials as of September 30th, 2018, so which is our third quarter. So looking at the general fund, the total revenues as of September 30th, 91.2 million, or 79% of the budget. Our target budget is 75%. This is the third quarter. Expenses at 87.4 million, so at 76.6% of the budget. General fund ending the third quarter at $16.9 million in fund balance, with the cash balance of $10.7 million. This is just the overall view compared to 17, where we stand in terms of both cash balances as well as the fund balances, and both the numbers trend higher than the last year. These are the general fund revenues by the major categories, and if you look at that, yes, against the budget of $114.8 million, we have around $79 million. Most of the property tax money has come in at right around 97%. Other tax is at 75%, so it's right at target of 75%. And interest income, that's the where we might get a little bit more. The amount-wise is not kind of that big, but yes, in terms of percentage, we might get to maybe around 150% there.
What's the other, can you go back? That's 1.3
Sure.
million you're about to skip over. What's that other revenue consist of?
The other revenue, that might include some of the miscellaneous grants and other things. If that. This is the expense overview by each department. Look at most of the department, overall 76.6. You would notice that police and fire at 79.9 and 83.6. One thing which is included in that expense is their property tax levy, so which we book it as an expense in the police department and the fire department. And that is one of the reasons which pushes these things above the 75% target. The major enterprise funds, our parking system funds, revenue-wise 73%, expenses at 44%. Expenses are lower mainly because of the not much in the capital outlay, and the principal debt service payment is due on December 1st. So you would notice in other enterprise funds that too. Water funds, revenue at 40% and expense at 29%. Again, I think we have originally budgeted a big $25 million project revenue and expense, the bond revenue and the bond for the Clearwell, I think, but it's, I think, going to happen next year, so that's why the revenues and expenses both on the lower side. Besides that, on the revenue side, Village of Skokie is paying less than our budgeted rate and the billed rate, so that is one of the other reasons, too, for the water revenue side. In the sewer fund, you would notice that, yeah, we are right on the target or a little above target in revenues at 77.5%, and expenses are lower. Again, sewer has some debt service due December 1st, and some of the capital outlay bills which would come now. Solid waste fund at 72.9 and expenses 63. The all other funds by some of the major categories, how we represent in our audit report or the
Excuse me.
Sure.
Alderman Rainey?
What is the expected expenditure, capital expenditure in the parking fund that you said we haven't yet made?
In the parking fund, right now we are at $5.6 million. There is I think one of the major thing here is the debt service payment, the big
Right.
debt service
What
payment.
is that? What is that going to be?
It would be around $3 million. Because we pay only once a year principal, and which is in December.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, there's a couple of projects that we had budgeted for this year in the parking fund that haven't got off the ground yet, so we're going to roll them over to next year. One of them is to upgrade the security cameras inside all 3 parking garages, and then another one is to do a lot of repainting and seal coating on the floors of the garages. That's starting to wear away. So we really haven't done any capital projects per se in the parking fund this year. Most of them are rolling over to next year.
Okay, but that's not debt service, that's stuff that we have.
No, so it's a
Correct.
combination of two, yes. It's the debt service and the capital outlay, both
Right,
things.
but so you're saying excluding those expenditures that we haven't even incurred, that there is a $3 million debt service payment to make on bonds already, of stuff
Right.
we've already spent? Okay.
But we're still with that number below 75. So along with the capital outlay and debt service, we would have been close to 75%, the target level.
And
Excuse
that
me,
is the
Hitesh.
that is the last payment on the garage that we will incur. So after that payment is made in December, all 3 garages will be
Maple?
debt-free.
Is that Maple Avenue?
It's Sherman.
Sherman.
Maple is already
Already
debt-free.
Alderman Braithwaite?
That's
I was just looking for the debt service for Robert Crown. Is that not reflected?
No, this is the 18, right? And
Okay, this is the summary of the, okay,
right.
got
The
it.
19 budget we were talking.
Okay.
All other funds by major categories, capital funds, which includes the CIP and the Robert Crown expenditure here. So you would see the $42 million, the 18 budget is 34. We have quite a big in the CIP fund. Debt service fund,
I can wait for him to finish his sentence.
Okay.
Debt service fund, you see the revenue of $20 million because of the new bonds issued in the debt service fund. In the capital project, again, the capital project fund almost got like close to $15 million in revenue, so you see the higher revenues. General fund at 79%, we looked at it. Internal service, which covers our fleet insurance fund and the equipment replacement fund. Special revenue funds at 65%. The TIF funds, they are doing good. We almost got almost all of our property tax money, so that's why they are reporting close to the 98 million. And overall, it is 267 million out of the 335 million budget.
Okay, my question had to do with, sorry, let me go back to it, the insurance fund. Can you just, I didn't cross-check what we have budgeted for there next year, but I know we have a very high negative now, so can you kind of just walk me through our plan for that one?
Right, so we continue to keep an eye on one of the main lawsuits, which has resulted into the huge deficit in the insurance fund. But right now, yes, it is running a deficit fund balance, and not only that's the only reason. The other thing is the accounting rule, where we have like a potential liabilities, we have to book it as an expense, even though it hasn't materialized. So we are reporting that's a couple of millions of potential liability as an expense, and that has hurt the insurance fund in terms of fund balance too. All funds expense overview. In the capital, we are 33%. Again, much of the work is not done, or if the work is done, the bills would come due later part of the year. In the debt service fund, you just see a $9 million, so it's again a big principal amount due in the December, which would make it close to the 100%. Enterprise funds at 40% of the expense. Again, the primary reason is the debt service and the capital outlay in those funds. General fund 76%, as reported earlier. Library at $6 million at 35%. The pensions, both the police and fire pension, they are at 75%. Those are the benefit payments to the retirees for the police and fire. TIF funds at 52%. So overall, we are at 197 million out of $335 million in the expense categories. Third quarter conclusion, Evans City ended the third quarter in stable condition with an operating surplus in general fund of $3.7 million. Enterprise and capital funds continue to spend down on the projects and debt service. And staff will closely monitor the revenues and expenses. Yeah, some of the state revenues, sales tax, income tax, will continue to have a close look at it so that any major deviations can be taken care of.
Excuse me, Alderman Rainey?
Hitesh, I know it's probably none of my business, but why is the library why are the library numbers so out of balance? They have, their budget is, their expenses are only at 34%.
Because I think we have included originally the $10 million CIP in this one, and that's why that looks so. And I think that later on the changes were made, so they could not proceed with that $10 million in capital. So that's why budget is higher, but
I mean, so, but they're, even so, they're increasing, they're raising their taxes, right? They're going to increase their levy?
they have a, yes, but they have a nominal increase, I think,
Yeah.
right around 2%.
Yeah. Well, they're limited.
Right, but I mean,
Could we borrow something from them?
from library?
7 million? They have an extra 7 million.
Just as easy as we could like borrow something from the TIF on the Howard side. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, we have about 7 cents.
Oh, God.
Any other question? Thanks.
I have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
So in our last city council meeting, I think some of the folks from the Friends from Crown mentioned that they wanted to pay for the first Robert Crown Payments debt service, but that our city staff was not allowing them to do so.
It's
Take
not
me-
that. I mean, it's a two-part thing. Like, first, the legally whether we can do that, and based on the bond council opinion, I mean, they say you can legally do that, but I have to carefully review your agreements, whether what the agreements entered into between the donor and the Friends of the Robert Crown, whether they have any restrictions where you cannot use that money. And those money, if there is a stipulation that those money can only be used for the construction.
For the capital, okay.
Right,
But we're working on it.
right.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of accepting and placing on file third quarter financial report for fiscal year 2018?
Aye.
It passes.
Item A5.
Alderman Suffredin, A5.
I move item A5, a contract with Patrick Engineering Incorporated to provide engineering services for the Main Street Improvement Project. This is a Phase 1 award in the amount of $363,738, and this is for action.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor?
Aye.
There was
I just wanted to
discussion?
ask what we're doing. If
Oh.
you walk me through it,
Various phases and what the scope of the project is.
Sure. My name is Laura Biggs. I'm the Bureau Chief of Capital Planning for the City of Evanston. So on the Main Street project, we're looking at what is that main Chicago Business District area from Maple to Hinman. And in that, we're doing a whole streetscape and resurfacing. So it will involve not just street resurfacing, but also repair and replacement of all the sidewalks. There are 2 pedestrian crosswalks that are heavily used, and we have trouble with visibility of pedestrians, so we'll be looking at that. The streetlights are elderly and don't fit in with our current City of Evanston streetlight stock. A couple of traffic signals to be updated, and just generally looking at kind of like a refresh and making sure everything's ADA compliant. The Phase 1 is where we do concept planning, and this project is a really good candidate for various grant programs, but that requires sort of a more diligent Phase 1 report with more information and study of the environmental implications and intersection design and things. And so we are doing that. The state of Illinois is changing how they award funding for projects and requiring that before you apply that you have completed this more rigorous Phase 1 study ahead of time. So we're going ahead and proceeding with that. Once that is done, we will be applying for grant funding, but also then we'll move into Phase 2 design, which would actually be preparing the construction documents, and then Phase 3, Phase 2 will take place in 2020, and then Phase 3, we would be looking at 21 for construction of the improvements.
So you anticipate that this will enable us to apply for state grants, county grants, and federal grants?
And the federal grants. IDOT is sort of standardizing a little bit what kind of information is required across the various grant programs. And so unfortunately or fortunately, they've just changed the criteria. It used to be that they were more willing to assist municipalities with the upfront engineering costs, and they're moving away from that.
Okay, so this investment is necessary in order to open us up to the possibility of getting.
Yes,
from other-
although we would still be required to do a Phase 1 report, and we looked at what the cost would be if we didn't do the full thing. It actually was not that much of a savings, just because we are including so many different scope items in the project, which are generally necessary because the main Chicago business district is not in very good condition in terms of infrastructure.
Got it. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It passes. A12, Alderman Braithwaite.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move item
Excuse me,
A12.
I'm sorry, I skipped one.
Okay,
A7.
sure. I'd like to move item A7, Resolution 97-R-18. It's a 6-month extension to the cable television franchise agreement with Comcast. No dollar amount. It's for action.
Second.
We have a public comment, Mr. James Engelman.
Hello, I'm James Engelman from 5th Ward and 24 Brown, and I would like you guys to extend the contract to Comcast franchise. It's a better company than ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Alderman Rainey.
I don't have any preference for any of the companies, but I'm wondering, I didn't quite understand the documentation, and are we bound by a contract with Comcast? What about the other companies? Could you explain that, Erica?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, each municipality has a franchise agreement with each particular cable operating vendor. So we have one with Comcast, we have one with RCN and AT&T. This allows them to operate within the city limits and allows them to levy the fees that they do on the bills that are then, some of those are returned to us, the PEG fee and then the franchise fee. So we have an existing agreement with them. It's up, it was 7 years. We're just proposing to add 6 months onto that existing agreement as we negotiate a new agreement for another period of 5 or 7 years.
So we have a franchise agreement with all of them.
We do.
Interesting. We used to just have it with one, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 It passes. Alderman Fleming, if you could introduce A12.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move that we take A12 for action, ordinance 114-0-18, the proposed lease agreement with Northwest Center Against Sexual Abuse. The staff recommends City Council adopt this ordinance authorizing the city manager to negotiate a 3-year lease with Northwest Center Against Sexual Abuse for office space in the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center at a monthly rental rate of $577.50 for the annual amount of $6,930. Actually, it's for introduction, sorry, not action.
May I have a second?
I was actually going to, unless there's any reason why we can't just move it for introduction and action. I mean, it's an organization that's already here, and it's just probably an extension to their lease, right?
It's a new 3-year lease,
But they're here,
but they are already here. They've been here for 3 or 4 years.
so I would call it an extension. I'm moving that we do it for action.
Introduction and action?
Yeah.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thank you. Items for discussion, APW 1. Alderman Braithwaite, will you introduce us for discussion?
Sure, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the Pace North Shore Garage Bus expansion. introduce it.
This is all right.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening. You have before you a staff report with a inquiry that we have received from Quad Indoor Sports at 2454 Oakton Street. They are looking to expand parking around their facility. They have gone to the Pace bus system, which has a large parcel nearby, and have worked out a proposal with Pace that would require a swap of land to move forward between Pace and the city of Evanston. There are representatives here from Quad Sports, which would like to make a presentation, Madam Chair, if that's all right.
That'll be fine. We do have public comment also.
Okay, and I'm not sure perhaps if representatives signed up for public comment, but I'll let the Quad Sports folks speak first, and then if there are additional folks who wish to speak.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Kidder. I'm the owner of Quad Indoor Sports at 2454 Oakton Street. I do have some important community customers here that I'd like to have speak on my behalf after this quick presentation, if that's okay with the committee. Okay. Do I drive? A couple of weeks ago, I met with Alderman Ann Rainey and City Manager Wally Bobkowitz, and we discussed a parking proposal for Quad Indoor Sports off the south end of our lot. Alderman Rainey had a very simple question. What is it that do you guys do there? And I thought it was a loaded question, but I just want to give you a quick overview. We are a 65,000 square foot indoor turf facility. We offer programming for both youth and adult, and obviously the indoor sports facility business is booming more so in the winter months than in the summer months. We have recreational and competitive programming, football, soccer. We offer birthday parties and special events such as bar mitzvahs and corporate outings. We've hosted field trips from elementary schools and some of the Park District programming. We also offer school out camps, and we offer our facility for rental to the various groups in the community, sports and non-sport. Some of our community partnerships that we've established in the 3 years since we've been in business, it's growing, and with that is the growing need for parking for this facility. Here are a few pictures of our parking lot last winter. As you can see, these are kind of obscure, but the bottom one is kind of it's a panoramic shot looking from the south on the left end all the way to the north, which encompasses the CubeSmart storage facility immediately to our west and all the way around to the Shell station and the Gordon Food Service Grocery on the right end of that. And if there is an inch of curb available, people are parking in there. We even had to give away Alderman Rainey's dedicated parking spot. There it is, the yellow one right there.
He's joking.
I'm sorry.
So quick question, what's the total number of spots that you have currently?
Current spots right now are 72.
And with the new proposal, how many more will you pick up?
Well, there is a map here I'll get to at the end, and Pace has made a civil engineering drawing, and it looks like 50, but I believe that we could probably get 60 easily. So darn near doubling our parking capacity. So right now, the Quad Dome is at the bottom, clearly marked. We utilize every one of our neighbors' parking spots with their permission to have overflow parking. That is CubeSmart, Shell Oil, Gordon Food Service, and across the street, Home Depot has been kind enough to dedicate some spots on theirs. Not many people use that Home Depot lot. It's a long walk.
The hammer. You may need that.
Getting back to those other pictures, just how every curb is loaded, it makes it challenging for pedestrians. And that's one thing that we're very sensitive to. Our parking lots and our fire lanes are always clear. Our sidewalks and our fire lanes are always clear, but we're on the busy days have staff manned in the parking lot making sure that everything runs smoothly. So here is the proposed map that is up for discussion. This is kind of an overview. The left end of this is the south border. The top is the west, and the right side is the north, with the dome right there in the middle. And the yellow shaded piece is the proposed parking area that we would pick up, which you would enter off our existing parking lot. And in exchange for a piece of land from the city of Evanston on the bottom left, which is the green expanded parking for the Pace bus, and that would go into what is referred to as the, it's right next to the sledding hill, or Mount Trashmore, I believe is what it's referred to in the community, and also the compost area. So that's the space. It would be an even square footage exchange, about 17,000 square feet. If it's okay now, I would like to invite a few of my guests to come and speak on our behalf. It's okay with the committee?
It's okay.
Okay. First to speak is Brian Lofton, owner and operator of Little Kickers franchise in the Chicago metro area.
Hi, Brian Lofton with Little Kickers, and we were one of the first tenants in the building. We service about 800 kids a year in our program. We're very sensitive to parking because our average age is 18 months to 4 years of age. So parking in Home Depot is not something that usually works out for our patrons to get there, even trying to get on a shuttle bus. Most of them have another child in a stroller of some sort. So it's been a challenge for us in terms of being able to grow because we deliberately limit the number of classes that we have because we know the strain that we actually put on the building and the parking process for that. In surrounding communities, again, we have 11 locations throughout Chicago. This would be a typical location where we would have 400 to 500 kids a session, which would be closer to the 1,600 to 2,000 kids. Which is where our performers say we would be able to perform in this area. But we're limited in being able to do that, and we certainly don't have the ability to grow the way the current parking piece is configured. It's understandable with what's there, but it's also a challenge for us in terms of a long-term decision as to whether we want to stay at the Quad Indoor Sports, because we really have maxed what we can fit there, knowing that the marketplace can bear more for us in that terms. And it's something we constantly try to balance. In terms of keeping that location open or trying to consolidate it into one of the surrounding facilities. So we would certainly welcome it. We think it would be great, and we appreciate you taking a look at it and the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
So, excuse me, so the facility is adequate?
The facility itself is adequate, yes. The issue has to do with parking and 72 spots. Yeah, at many locations we would have about 100 kids per hour, and that would probably be about 80 spots just by itself for our program. So yeah, we pretty much kill the whole building by only using about a third of the space. So that is the challenge. Thank you.
Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a quick question for you, or either one of you, maybe just the owner. So there's a similar smaller facility over on Dempster Street, and they have a, drop off and keep moving for parents. Do you have a plan similar to that on the site?
What we are introducing this year, due to the growth, is a shuttle that allows parents to come in, drop off their kids, and go park their car across the street, and they'll jump in the van and come back. With Brian's point was many of his parents would be dropping off 18-month-old, 2-year-old, and 3-year-old children. So it's not possible. But yes, we do offer it.
So parents, there's a place where they can just drop off and keep on moving. Okay.
And that works fine on most days, but when we get to the busy winter days,
it's a little bit more difficult.
The next person I'd like to have speak on our behalf is Evanston Soccer Association Committee member John Berkeley.
Good evening. I represent the Evanston Soccer Association, which has over 500 youth players and over 400 Evanston families participating. We were so excited when Quad Sports opened a few years ago. Before it opened, we traveled to Palatine, Highland Park, and other far reaches to be able to play soccer in the winter in leagues. And now that Quad Sports is open, we're able to play there. And as Peter Braithwaite commented just a second ago, when you have a practice facility, you can do this carpooling and drop-off. But if you have parents and grandparents coming to watch a soccer game, they want to park and come in and watch the game. And this makes it very difficult in the winter when it's icy and stormy to have parents and players find a place to park, because with only 70 spaces and normally at least 100 players in the building, and when games are changing over, that means, over 200 players trying to find parking spaces it's very difficult. So we would fully support more parking for the quad sports from the Evanston Soccer Association. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Barbaro from the Evanston Baseball and Softball Association.
Thank you. I'm Frank Barbaro. I'm one of the co-presidents of Evanston Baseball and Softball. We have about 1,300 kids in Evanston who play baseball and softball from pre-K through 8th grade. We use the quad for various things for baseball, but the big thing for parking, I think, as it was mentioned, was for the little guys. We in the early spring, obviously we don't live in Florida, but our guys want to play baseball in the spring, so we use the quad for some of our little kids, T-ball and such. I can fit a lot of T-ball. I can play 8 T-ball games in the quad if I have enough parking, but unfortunately our issue is parking. There's plenty of space in the facility, and to that point, we're talking about 5 and 6 year olds who you can't really drop off that easily, versus when we have 12 and 13 year olds in there, you can drop them off and leave. So the facility has been great for us to get winter work and for early spring, but parking has really been the major issue for us to use it more. So it'd be very helpful for us if we were able to get some more parking.
Thank you. Alderman Fleming?
I guess I have a question for staff if we're at the point of asking about how the parking will be installed and such. Are we at that point yet?
Sorry.
So I know it says metered parking and there will be a fence here. My question is regarding the cost. So would the city incur the cost for these parking spaces for paving? And then I guess then another question is, I assume we've already looked at this, but how close is this to the area where kids are playing? How much of that park space are we taking up?
The answer to the second question is that is a part of the park that really does not get a lot of use. So,
On the back side of the hill, is that right?
Well, it's adjacent to the backside of the hill. So there's a strip. If you look at it in Errol, I don't know that you can kind of see it there. There's sort of a bare space.
I can walk over there tomorrow and look at.
So no, we're not concerned about that. I think the concerns really were first is to come to the council to, get a sense from you if this was something that should be pursued. We do not have a formulated agreement with Quad Sports regarding costs associated with this. They have indicated in our preliminary discussions that they would be interested in participating in the costs associated with the paving that would be necessary. We have done no work up until now to identify what those costs would be. We have said to them that would be our expectation that this would be paid parking as part of the city's parking system. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, if this is something you would like us to at least take to the next step, those questions will be the next ones to answer, and we would come back likely with either a draft agreement or at least deal points for you to consider moving forward. PACE is interested in doing this. They are having a change in their leadership at the end of next month. Their longtime executive director, who's been personally involved in these discussions, would like to move this forward if possible before he leaves. So there's some sense of urgency on the PACE side, which is tremendous. So if this is something that makes sense to pursue, then we would just come back at a future meeting with more details.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
Yes, and picking up at that point, our relationship with PACE years ago under the mayoralship of Mayor Barr started off pretty poorly, and as a matter of fact, PACE sued the city of Evanston, Mayor Barr, myself, and Alderman Larson personally to get control of this property because they did not own it, and we did not want them to take up this space for their bus barn. And of course they won, and here they are. And this effort to acquire some property for parking has been going on for a year or so, maybe 2 years, and PACE really wouldn't I mean, they came to the table a couple of times, but they really wouldn't even talk to us. But they've now decided evidently that they could use a little extra parking, and the sports dome is desperate for parking. And so this is a perfect opportunity to make this trade, and it's even. And it works out great for the sports dome and for all of their customers. So I really hope that we can consider this proposal. It's, I guess it's a win. It must be a win for Pace, and it certainly is good for us. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, I have one more quick question. The sports dome, is that, you all own that property and that dome, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Braithwaite.
I'm definitely supportive of moving this forward, but I have just a separate question. Do you currently serve food at the location?
Yes, we do.
Do you currently serve alcohol?
Yes, we do.
Oh, you do? Okay, cool.
Well, but you serve, I mean, I think you should elaborate on that.
So it's a very abbreviated service of both, and to look at the total annual sales, it's very small. It's a cafe type situation where hot dogs, chips, peanuts, and the adult league nights will sell beer.
That's what I mean.
Beer only.
Yeah.
To expand.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No further questions. Any items for communication?
So can we recommend that staff pursue
Okay.
this?
It was just a discussion, so you want someone make a motion?
Are you looking for some advice?
I'm looking for advice. So if you feel what you've heard tonight makes sense, my recommendation would be to continue to move forward with discussions. If you don't, I'd like to know, and we won't.
We should move forward. Is
And
there a
move forward, I
motion?
would like to have those questions answered in terms of, before we get to the agreement that we.
Sure. I mean, so, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm happy to check in once we have perhaps deal points. I think I heard concerns regarding cost sharing. I think we want to make sure there have been improvements to James Park over the years that have some strings attached to them. We need to ensure that this swap would not be in violation of any of those grant agreements that we've received over time, specifically from the state of Illinois. So, again, this was meant to be a first discussion, and if there's general concurrence, it's worth talking. We'll do that. And prior to having any kind of proposed agreement, we would come back to this committee with deal points. And again, if there's concurrence there, we'll continue to move forward to a draft agreement.
And it's good to have some relationship with them in that space, which we've not had really.
With Pace? Well, absolutely. And I think that with their change in leadership, they're anxious to, the executive director who is retiring at the end of November would like to see this move forward. So we'd like to try to keep that momentum going over the next 45 days, and so likely be back to you sometime before the end of November.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did you have another one more?
Is more
Alderman
so
Braithwaite.
for Madam Chair and also Erica. So several months ago, I've asked for a report on administrative adjudication and just the outstanding fines and the revenue. And so in speaking with the city manager, my understanding is that we have the software in place to come back maybe at our next meeting or thereafter, just to give us a report.
I will check on the status of that report with the CFO and give you an update by the next meeting.
Thank you.
Any further communication?
That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.